Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
What's up, PGF Nation? We are back. Another coach gets fired in the SEC. We had an AFC Championship game rematch. Two top 10 teams get upset in college football. We had some crazy games in the NFL, a lot to cover. But joining me, as always, my co-host, Alex Higdon. Alex, what is going on?
As we're winding down this Cowboys game where it looks like they just kind of fell apart, thought we might have something exciting to talk about in real time, but I guess not.
We usually try to stay up, of course, until the Monday night game wraps because sometimes these games end up being a part of the episode. Not a whole lot to talk about here. I thought Jacoby Brissett came in and played pretty good in this game. I think Arizona's offense, for the most part, looked pretty good. Cowboys had a lot of missed opportunities, really couldn't get it going. This is the first time that I can think of, at least recently, where the Cowboys offense just could not get it going in this game. And they've been pretty unstoppable. Cardinals, I thought that had a good game plan. They gave them some really good looks defensively, had Dak holding onto the ball a few times, didn't have a lot of places to throw the football on some key downs, took a big sack in the red zone that hurt them. But Arizona getting a big win. I don't think either one of these teams are playoff teams. Maybe Dallas with their offense if they can get hot here, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in them either.
Yeah, I mean, in our space that we share, Brett, I actually took the Cardinals plus 3.5 because if you look at their last 4 to 5 games, they've lost all of them 4 points or less. So losing, but they're a tough out, and that even with Jacoby Brissett or Brisket, since they're playing in Texas, even with him starting, I was still confident in them being able to do some things against that terrible back seven of Dallas.
Look, let's jump into it, Alex. AFC Championship game rematch, obviously the biggest game of the weekend. This one was huge. It always feels big. When these two teams play, regular season or not, it feels like the biggest game in football every time they play. And one thing I've really noticed, Alex, this season, and I've been really paying attention to this a lot, especially in the last several weeks, everything with Mahomes right now is off script. And I think it caught up to him in this game because, look, he rarely has time to sit in the pocket, throw on time. It seems like all their offense is coming from him buying time, scrambling around. He's running more than we've seen from him really in a long time, not including the playoffs. We know the playoffs, he tends to use his legs a lot more, but he's been using his legs a lot in the regular season this year.
Yep.
Part of that's the offensive line, and part of that was not having all of his receivers, but also, he's got his receivers back now, and his guys aren't getting open early enough. And I thought the Bills, I have to give them credit, they were really prepared for Mahomes going off script. I thought they did a really nice job kind of bottling him in the pocket, getting a lot of pressure on him. They got a lot of sacks and a lot of big stops in this game. I mean, where has this defense been all year, Alex? That's my big question. I mean, this Bills defense, I think, has easily been the biggest question mark for this team, and they were lights out in this game versus the Chiefs that was really rolling coming into this game. I mean, I looked on PFF. They had the Bills ranked 28th in the NFL in defense. They looked like a top 5 unit on Sunday.
Respectfully, the Bills have been beating the Chiefs a few times during the regular season. However, they never beat them when it counts. So if they want to celebrate this as a Super Bowl, then so be it. I can, give them credit for being focused in and locked in on keeping him in the pocket because Mahomes has been obviously more of a mobile, actually more of a running quarterback than he has been in the past. And speaking of that, the trade deadline is tomorrow, and I'll mention this a few times about some teams as we talk about them. Breece Hall, because I have one narrative that I think Kansas City was trying to get Tank Bigsby, and Philly realized it, and they did, because I couldn't understand why Philly would go after a Tank Bigsby, but they did. I didn't understand it. But I think Kansas City had honed in on him, and they knew it, so they wanted to take him away. Well, Breece Hall is now up for trade. They need to make a move because they need some type of juice in the backfield. Pacheco is good, Kareem Hunt is good, but they're hammerheads. You need some juice in that backfield.
Honestly, they don't run the ball enough, though. I think, I get what you're saying. They need to add a piece in the backfield. I could see that. But Andy Reid just doesn't run the ball. I mean, they just go away from it, even when it's working. There was times in that game where Kareem Hunt was making some nice runs. It seemed like they had some bounce, and then they go away from it, and they just go back into their straight drop back passing, and they just put so much on Mahomes' plate. I don't know if it's necessarily the backs or if it's just the play calling, because it just feels like Andy Reid does not commit to the run enough when it feels like they need to at this point, especially when you're going up against a Bills team where the pass rush is getting home. That's really one of the best ways to offset that pass rush is to run the ball, and they just didn't do it consistently in this game. I mean, Mahomes, look, this might be the worst game I've seen him play in a long time.
Yeah, this is a bad one. Yeah.
15 for 34, 0 touchdowns, that costly pick late where he just threw it up for grabs.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. That was odd. And let's also remember, you talk about the pass rush getting home. Josh Simmons, who had been looking like a guy that was going to be probably a 10-year starter, has missed the last few games too.
Yeah, I keep hearing reports that it's a personal issue. Of
maybe he just came back as of today. He's back, so
okay.
Hopefully we'll see what it looks like going forward.
But yeah, you look on the other side, Josh Allen was surgical in this game. Absolutely lights out. 23 for 26, 273 total touchdowns. Look, he's going to get the game ball for me this week, Alex. This was the biggest game of the week by far. This is a game that could decide playoff seeding between these two teams. And this could be a big win down the road. So, look, he was the MVP last year. He played like the MVP in this game. But to your point, like you said earlier, it's got to be frustrating for Bills fans because I believe this is 5 wins in a row in the regular season for Buffalo against Kansas City. This team continues to beat them in the regular season. They haven't been able to get them in the playoffs, so it's got to be frustrating. But the one thing I will push back on, though, is I don't think this team was celebrating at all. Because if you watch the postgame when they talked to Josh Allen and some of these guys, it was very businesslike. I think they're well aware of the narrative. I think they're well aware of the fact that they've been beaten in the regular season but haven't gotten up over the hump. And you could tell there wasn't a whole lot of excitement. It was just very businesslike. Like, look, we took care of business. It's a good win. So what? They know they've got to get it done when it matters. And we'll see what happens. But a great matchup between these teams. It always is when they play. It's one of those games where you wait for the commercial break to go to the bathroom because you don't want to miss anything when you're watching these guys play for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's move on to another game here that was crazy, Alex. And I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting to talk about this game. And then it turned into one of those games, which is the Chicago Bears and the Cincinnati Bengals. This game really should have never been this close. I mean, it felt like the Bears were going to blow this thing open. Should have been up 21 points. They get a touchdown called back. Then the Bears blow a 14-point lead with about 90 seconds to go in this game. Joe Flacco leads a 4-play, 55-yard touchdown drive in 32 seconds to cut the lead in half. And then the Bengals recovered the onside kick, which was crazy. It bounced off Daniel Hardy. That sets up a 6-play, 57-yard touchdown drive to take the lead with 54 seconds remaining. And at that point, you're thinking, man, same old Bears, right? You kind of start thinking, what a gut punch, because this team was in position to easily win this game. And it just felt like we were going to be talking about one of the biggest collapses of Sunday, but it's 37 seconds left. Caleb Williams gets the ball, hits Colston Loveland for the game-winning 58-yard touchdown, running through the secondary. Where was the effort there, by the way? But I guess it's the Bengals defense. What do you expect at this point? But unbelievable. The thing about this game was last year it felt like every time there was a game like this, the Bears found a way to lose.
Lose it, yeah.
And this year it's feeling different because they're winning a lot of these close games. They're winning a lot of these crazy comeback, wild finish games. Are they a great team? No, I don't think they're a great team, but I think they've got a good coach that looks like he's the real deal, a first-year coach and a second-year quarterback that's showing a little bit of growth every week. It looks like he's getting a little better, a little more comfortable in the system. And the one thing that stood out to me, Alex, was I think the Bears' offensive line is really starting to gel.
Yeah, but 1 o'clock games had a lot of craziness that happened in a lot of different games. So we're kind of stacked on the NFL side. I mean, I'll talk about my guy. My game ball goes to Kyle Monangai, 26 carries, 176 yards. The Bears as a team gashed him, for 283 total yards and 2 TDs. So he was at 6.8 yards a carry, something that's the balance that we're talking about between the pass and the run. But I have to give Caleb Williams a lot of credit here, and it's really because it's been something I've been harping on about him since his rookie season. Last year he had Cole Kmet. This year he has Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, another first-round weapon. And I was harping on the fact that he is always looking third level. He skips the check down, he skips the tight end, he goes right to the wide receivers. And it's been an issue for me with him. The goal is to get as many first downs, not to score touchdowns on one play. You don't have to throw a bomb. You're not at USC anymore. He finally started using the tight end, 6 catches, 118 yards, 2 TDs for Colston Loveland while Cole Kmet is down. So on the fantasy side, if he's on your waiver wire, this is a guy you might want to look at because maybe the light bulb is finally going on for Caleb Williams to start using the tight end.
I think the creative play calling we saw in this game was something that we've come to expect from Ben Johnson going back to his days in Detroit, always knowing when to kind of pull out the gadget play, the quote-unquote trick play, the misdirection plays. There was a lot of really creative play calling in this game, but I also like that this team is going to go with the run, even with their star running back out. They said, look, we are a run team, and we're going to set up everything off of the run, just like he did in Detroit. So they didn't go away from their identity in this game, and I think it's paying dividends for this offense and this young quarterback. So I think it's a great point, Alex. Look, let's stick in the NFC North because there was another game that was pretty wild. Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
First note that I have written down here for this game was Brian Flores called a great game. I mean, this guy was dialing it up, man. And we know he's one of the best defensive minds in this game. But this game plan was absolutely brilliant. He had Detroit guessing in this game. Detroit couldn't run the ball. And like we just talked about, when Ben Johnson was there with Detroit, it's still their DNA is to run the ball. That's the straw that really stirs the drink for this team. When you stop the run, it really slows down the offense. They got pressure on Jared Goff. He never felt comfortable in this game. And look, shout out to J.J. McCarthy. This guy had an uneven performance. He definitely had some rookie moments, but he made enough good plays to help them win what felt like a huge win that kind of saved their season. I felt like this was one of those games where if they lose this game, I felt like their season was really going to get away from them. They needed this one to avoid falling more than 3 games back in the NFC North if they lose this game. So this was pivotal. They needed this one bad against a very good Detroit team. But, yeah, I got to give McCarthy credit, especially with the game on the line, Alex. That throw he had, that big-time throw on third down to put the game on ice, that was pretty impressive stuff here. Like, look, he's a young guy. He basically lost his rookie season. He's lost a bunch of time this year, so he's really kind of behind where he should be from a development standpoint. But you've got to be at least encouraged what you saw from this guy and from this team.
Yeah, so I think, with him coming back, Carson Wentz, I believe Carson Wentz was actually out, injured this game. I think one of the unsung heroes of this game should be Aaron Jones. He's only played 5 games this season, but to come in, I think he had 9 carries for 78 yards and the big 31-yard scamper that he had. And then the mixture in of him with Jordan Mason, who I believe is a better fit for their actual running style coming from San Francisco. But I think those two guys together, 29 carries and 42 yards and a touchdown, I think that was a huge catalyst to helping them balance things out and keep time of possession and keep churning out yards and beating up the defense. That was a big part of them winning this game as well.
Let's shift here. AFC matchup, Pittsburgh Steelers, Indianapolis Colts. Look, where has this been all year for the Steelers defense? What did I watch, Alex? Because this is a defense that has been struggling pretty much all season long, giving up big points to even teams that have pretty mediocre offenses. This has been one of the worst defenses in the NFL. This team came out, they played like a desperate football team. And just like I mentioned a minute ago with Minnesota, it kind of felt like the Steelers season was starting to slip away from them, and they were starting to really lose that lead in the AFC North. This is a game that they really needed to bounce back, and they got it. I mean, the defense finally played like the highest paid defense in the NFL. 6 turnovers. They completely took the run away, and they harassed Daniel Jones in this game.
Yeah, and TJ Watt doing TJ Watt things, sack, fumble, the recovery, tipping the ball, interceptions. I know there's been a lot of talk about Daniel Jones and, elite Danny Dimes, or what is it, Indiana Jones, I guess now that he's in Indianapolis. He had a subpar game. He had a bad game. Obviously, this is not the guy you want throwing 50 times. You don't want most, do you really probably don't mind your top 1%, but this is a guy you don't want throwing the ball 50 times. And that's what they had to do because Pittsburgh decided to key in on the run. Cameron Hayward, he didn't show up in his stat sheet in terms of what he did, but he was disruptive all game long in the run game, in the pass game, rush up the middle, taking away running lanes for Daniel Jones, who is mobile, knocking down Jonathan Taylor, not being able to get one of the big runs or any type of juice going to kind of balance things out. I mean, they still lost the game 27-20. I think they got a cheap touchdown at the end, but it wasn't as close as it looked. This was a typical Pittsburgh dominating defensive game that you have been waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen this, like I said, all year. I haven't seen anything like this. But if you peel back the onion a little bit, last week they trade for Kyle Duggar from New England. Now, he played a bunch of snaps in this game, and it allowed them to move Jalen Ramsey from the nickel to safety, which was huge because he came up big in this game. And they also played a lot more zone coverage in the secondary. They have been playing mostly man-to-man and getting torched, quite frankly, all season long. That's the most zone I've seen them play all year. And I think that shift, that defensive shift in picking up a guy like Kyle Duggar to really help on the back end of that defense, it really showed a huge difference in this game, and it slowed Daniel Jones's decision-making down just a bit, and it really allowed that pass rush to get home. I thought it was the difference in this game. And to your point about shutting down the run, because we know this is a team, it's a run-first team. Everything is set up off of the run, and when you shut that down, it makes it really difficult for them to get their offense going. And it was really just a landslide. Because like you said, that score, if you didn't watch the game, it wasn't that close. This was a dominant win by Pittsburgh. Alex, so before we shift gears, looking at this game, does Pittsburgh get back on track, or is this just a one-off for the Colts?
I think this is a one-off for the Colts. They've been rolling. I think that offensive line is still good. I think they just got caught by a veteran team, a veteran coach that is kind of pressing, looking at what Baltimore had did on Thursday and saying, okay, they're in a position to rip off some games. We need to keep pace. And I think they played with more urgency, and you saw that on the field. And the key thing that you said, which is something I have been harping on, is Jalen Ramsey to safety. Jalen Ramsey to safety. This is Rod Woodson to safety for what it was for the Raiders and for Baltimore. Move Jalen Ramsey to safety. I do not believe he is one of the best cover guys in the league anymore. I think he can extend his career and also get a couple of Pro Bowls and All Pros at the safety position and maybe come down whenever you need him to, but he should not be in coverage at all times.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this when they made that trade in the offseason with Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's something we talked about. We talked about how, okay, you're trading a safety for a corner. How does that make sense? I think the plan all along was to shift him to safety. I think, unfortunately for them, they realized early in the season, okay, we might have to speed up the plan. Because I think maybe the plan was, let's do that next year. They realized, look, he's already lost a step and he can't cover anymore. We need to accelerate this plan. So what do? They make the trade for Kyle Duggar. It allows them to add that piece into the secondary and shift him to the safety position. And look, small sample size, but the results really looked good so far. So hats off to Mike Tomlin and those guys for having a plan to shift gears here when things weren't working the first half of the year on that side of the ball. That's what a great defensive mind does. Let's also shift here to the New England Patriots, Atlanta Falcons. This was a crazy game, Alex. We had a lot of crazy games. Like you said, there's a lot to get to here today. New England starts this game fast. I mean, they really get it going. It kind of looks like they were going to run away and hide, but then Atlanta, the pass rush in the second half, these guys really got it going. And when you look at the Falcons, I mean, it was 21-7, but in the second half, it was all Falcons. I mean, Bijan Robinson making one-handed catches. Drake London targeted 14 times. I mean, it seemed like every one of his catches was a highlight reel. He finishes with 3 touchdowns. Even Kyle Pitts, I mean, laying out for footballs. I swear there was one where he must have been parallel with the ground. I mean, diving on that over route. I know what play, what play I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That over route, he hauls it in, absolutely lays out for it. It looked like Dennis Rodman going for a loose ball back in the 90s. It was crazy. But, man, I got to give Atlanta a lot of credit. Look, they came up short. They were fighting like hell to get back in this game, and they did. They just fell a little bit short. I think this team, look, it's got to be kind of frustrating for Atlanta fans. I think this team is close, Alex. I really do. It might not be this year. Maybe this is a development year. But I think this is close if they could just play a complete football game.
So I'll start there. I picked Atlanta to go to the playoffs. Atlanta has to fire their offensive coordinator. I'm sorry. This game was 23-24. There is no way in hell that Bijan Robinson is considered a top three, who would be considered a top three running back talent, and top three running back in the league should only be running the ball 12 times. 12. No. He had 10 targets. He had almost as many targets as he had rushes. He is a running back. They probably have, if not not the best, because we'll give that to Montgomery and Gibbs, but they at least have the second best with Algiers and Bijan Robinson. Run the ball. They ran the ball a total times of 16. You got a clean game from Michael Penix. Why are you not running the ball? This was not something where you had to catch up. It was a close game all the way throughout. Kudos to Raheem Morris, because as a defensive coach, he has taken care of his side of the ball, and they're a top 3 defense in the league. But Zach Robinson, who comes from that McVay tree, I don't understand why they're not running the ball and just playing defense. Coaches have to learn to go to your strengths and stop trying to outsmart yourselves. He's a weapon. Use him. And I'll end here. We talk about running backs. Bijan Robinson is 16th in rushing attempts. Cam Scatterbo, and it may have changed because he had 12 yesterday, but Cam Scatterbo was ahead of him heading into yesterday's game, and he wasn't even the starter. There's no Devon Achane. The little 5'8", 100-pound back is getting more carries than Bijan Robinson, and that is ridiculous.
So, real quick, because you mentioned the Shanahan coaching tree, that Shanahan-McVay coaching tree, the Christian McCaffrey model should be exactly who Bijan Robinson is.
Absolutely.
For this. Because when you watch the 49ers, the offense runs through CMC, period. He is the guy between the tackles, outside the tackles, in the passing game, in the swing pass, angle routes, everything. He is the guy. The offense runs through Christian McCaffrey, and that is why this team, with all their injuries and backups everywhere, still find a way to win games most weekends. Why? Because they know they have one of the most dynamic players in the NFL in their backfield, just like Atlanta, but for some reason, their Ferrari is stuck in neutral. And they've got to figure out a way to get this thing into second and third gear, just like the 49ers do, which is so odd because that's really what that offense is based off of, is when you have a dynamic running back like this who can do all the same things that a guy like Christian McCaffrey does, there's no reason why that shouldn't be the model. That should be the model for Atlanta, to run their offense through him, and then that sets up the shots to Drake
everything
London.
else.
That sets up the shots to Kyle Pitts. That sets up everything else in that passing game when you got him going and the defense has to worry about him.
Right.
So,
and I'll end here. Christian McCaffrey, he's third in passing targets. He's second in rushing attempts, and he leads the league in all-purpose yards. Atlanta is losing an opportunity where they can get ahead, be a year ahead of where we were just talking about where they might be next year. They should be a year ahead now. And now and I don't even know if we're going to talk about the game, or maybe it's a segue. They've now let the Panthers leapfrog them and possibly be in a driver's seat to get a playoff spot.
Yeah, no, it is the perfect segue because I want to talk about Panthers here. Look, I know we didn't do our betting preview podcast last week. That's my bad, guys. But I did take the Panthers plus 13 in this game. Felt like a trap game all the way. And for some reason, I don't know why this is, Alex, but the Packers this season just play to their competition.
They do, yes.
And look, this is a team, week one, they destroyed the Lions. They destroyed the Steelers. But their two losses are to the Browns and the Panthers, and then they have a tie versus the Cowboys, who only have half a football team. So, look, Alex, let me just start with this. How concerned should Packer fans be after this game?
I don't think they should be concerned as much. I'll echo some of the same things that I just echoed about the previous game. This game was a 16-13 game. Josh Jacobs, who's really a grind-out player. He's a tough runner, eats up space. He had 17 carries for 87 yards, 5.1 yards a carry. Once again, why are you throwing the ball? Run the ball and play your game. This is not an explosive offense. You can run the ball, control the time of possession, and keep them off the field by just owning time of possession. Again, sometimes I think coaches outsmart themselves, because this was a game that you should have given Josh Jacobs 25 carries because you see the flow of the game. the flow of the game, saying, you know what, we're not gonna beat them because we're the big bad Packers. They're fighting with us. We're in a phone booth fight. So fight like you're in a phone booth. Don't finesse it. Fight like you're in a phone booth.
Before we shift to some college football, just a massive week of injuries. And look, we don't talk a whole lot of injuries, but it was crazy how many guys went down. Several big name players went down. Obviously, Jaden Daniels with that gruesome left elbow injury. Really, really tough to see that. And look, on a quick side note here, before we talk about these other injuries, should he have been in the game or not? Or is that just hindsight's 2020?
No, it was said in real time. The game is over. Get him out of there. Get him out of there.
That's my thought too, because this game was out of reach. Like if this was, let's say it's a 14-point game, a 17-point game. Okay, it's a low percentage chance you can come back in that situation, but I get it because if they score there on that last drive, they're in the red zone. If they score there and maybe you're only down 10 or something, okay, that's a different story. They're down 30. Like the game has been over. Like the game was long over. And not to mention this guy just came back from an injury. He's your franchise quarterback. I didn't understand it. I really didn't. And I know hindsight's 2020, but I thought that in real time.
Yeah.
When it happened, I thought, what is he even doing in the game? Like I got up to go to the bathroom, Alex, so I missed the injury. Mm-hmm. I come back and I see I see a player. I see everybody, acting as if someone's hurt. I'm like, okay, well, what happened here? And then I go to Twitter, of course, and I see that it's Jaden Daniels, and I see him walking off with his arm wrapped up, and I go, why is he that was my first thought. Why is he in the game? I look at the time on the clock. There's like 7 minutes and change. What's he doing in the game? So I just terrible. I mean, just terrible. A complete throwaway season now for Washington. Even if he comes back, they're going to be in a huge hole.
No.
So it's just a total mess.
Yeah, the Jaden Daniels looks like he's going to be a guy in this league. He still has to maturate and go through the process of, because obviously defenses have caught up. They're keeping him in the pocket and say, beat us from the pocket. That's something that he's not accustomed to. So that's something that he's going to have to work on and get past to get to that next level that people think he can get to. And I think realizing that in that game, being down like that would say, you know what? Let's go. Let's take him out. Let's go lick our wounds and come back and fight another day. That's one of the key things that I was thinking. I said it in real time before he got hurt. That's the thing. Several people have said in the space that we share before he got hurt. Why is he still in the game? He's injury prone. He's just coming back from injury before the injury happened.
That game was long over. I mean, just ridiculous. Speaking of quarterbacks, C.J. Stroud left Houston's game. They lost to Denver, taking a big hit.
Yeah. That was
big hit.
That was old school.
Yeah, on he's trying to slide. He's trying to protect himself. Something that we've talked about with Jaden Daniels, how he needs to protect himself more as a runner. C.J. Stroud actually was in that play, but just an unfortunate hit there. Brutal loss for the Chargers. Left tackle Joe Alt with another high ankle sprain in his second game back with that same injury. And what a difference this guy made, because when he came back, that offensive line instantly looked better.
Absolutely.
Overnight, they were a different O-line when he came in. They lost another player on the line. What a mess. Look, I know you're not the biggest Chargers guy. I know you're not the biggest Herbert guy, but I got to give him a lot of credit. He's playing behind a really beat up O-line. They're finding ways to win games.
Yeah, I'll give him credit. And Joel is out for the season, so he's not just hurt. He's done.
Yeah, he's
rough. He's done for the season.
Niners first round pick. Michael Williams suffers an injury. I haven't heard the update yet.
He's out for the season.
So, okay, it is a torn ACL. Okay. I heard that it might be a torn ACL, but I hadn't seen that was confirmed. That's absolutely terrible, because, look, this guy was playing really good football too. I think he really fit what Robert Saleh and those guys are trying to do. Just really unfortunate, especially with a young guy that's starting to come on.
Before you go on to the next thing, I've never thought in the PGF Nation that we would ever need to really have a conversation about who are the trainers for the San Francisco 49ers. That needs to be a topic of discussion somewhere, because I don't know what's going on out there. For the past 3 years, they've just.
I don't understand it
this year.
I don't understand it, because every year there's a team like this that just gets bit by the injury bug. We see it every year. There's always a team that just For whatever reason, they have a bunch of injuries, and it's unfortunate. But it seems like they're that team every year.
The team, exactly.
And I don't understand it. It's crazy. I'm with you. So moving along here, Green Bay tight end Tucker Kraft.
That was a tough one.
And here's another guy that was really playing out of his mind. I mean, just playing some unbelievable football. Fantasy alert. Musgrave,
that's a fact.
Go get Luke Musgrave, guys, because look, Jordan Love likes to go to his tight end. He's not as talented as Tucker Kraft, but he's a good player, and I think he's a guy that's going to take that role. He's going to take some of those targets. Patriots lose some key players. Kayshon Boutte to a hamstring injury and Christian Gonzalez to a head injury. Talk about, maybe your best weapon offensively, easily one of the best corners in the NFL with injuries. Puka Nacua leaves in a Rams win over New Orleans with a rib injury. He didn't return. Travis Hunter injured his knee during practice and was out.
Yeah, he's out for 4 weeks.
Yeah, is now on injury reserve. He was starting to make some plays for Jacksonville. Wow. I didn't think we'd have an injury segment, but brutal stuff, Alex. Brutal stuff.
Right. And real quickly before we move on, we're up against the trade deadline, so there were a lot of moves made. You talked about the Kyle Duggar move. The Eagles made a flurry of moves, trading for Jair Alexander from the Ravens, getting a slot corner Michael Carter, and then making another move for a pass rusher, Jalen Phillips from Miami. So they're loading up to try and make a second half run. So that's very interesting. The trade deadline is over tomorrow at, I believe it is 4:00 Eastern Standard Time. Jerry Jones has made his announcement that they have made a trade, and we should wait and with bated breath to find out who this player is. Brad shaking his head. I don't know who it is, but it was comical to see him do that. But some other players that could be moving on. You heard me mention earlier Breece Hall as such, but there's some other plays out there that I think some people could be looking at to make some moves, especially corner. The Rams are looking for a corner, so I'm not sure what direction they're going to go in to kind of make their second half.
Look, I'm just going to say this. If Howie Roseman's name comes up on your phone, don't pick up the phone. This guy fleeces everyone. How does he manage these deals? Phillips from Miami is a really good player. I know a lot of people, he's not a national name because he plays for the Dolphins. They're not very good, and they have a weak fan base. This guy is a heck of a pass rusher and a guy who still has a lot of football in front of him. This is a guy that they could re-sign to an extension, and he could be a guy for them. Unbelievable what this guy does. This guy is playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers, and I don't understand it. Yeah. Although Jerry, though, watch out. Watch out for Jerry's big move.
And I have one last thing, a self-righteous thing. Welcome back, Brock Bowers. 12 catches, 127 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's
how
the only good thing. Yeah, that's the only thing good I have to say about the Raiders. I don't want to talk about it.
And he's been something else, man. I think he's already in that conversation of one of the best tight ends in the game. Yeah. So good to see him back. Look, let's shift gears here. Some depressing NFL stuff. So let's move right into a depressing college football story. Hugh Freeze fired at Auburn. Man, the unemployment line in the southeastern part of the country has got a long line of guys waiting here because this is now the 4th SEC coach to get fired in the middle of this season. Absolutely crazy. Now here's the thing. Am I surprised by this, Alex? No. I'm not. He went 15-19 over 3 seasons. He was 1-5 in SEC play this year. Bottom line is he just couldn't figure out the quarterback position for Auburn. Whether it was with transfers, recruiting, he couldn't fill that spot. And I think it really cost him in the end because they could never get the offense going. This is an offensive guy, and the offense is struggling. And when your quarterback spot is the biggest problem, it's going to be tough. Look, in that conference, we know how competitive it is. It's really tough when you don't have a guy under center. So I'm not making excuses for him. It's just the way it is sometimes.
I want you to rank these jobs. Florida, I'm assuming Mike Norvell gets fired at the end of the season, so I'm going to throw Florida State in there. Penn State and Auburn, rank those jobs. And LSU, rank those jobs.
I'm going to say, this is tough. I'm going to say Penn State, Florida, LSU, Auburn. I know Tiger fans are probably outraged by me putting that low down on the list here, but
they shouldn't be.
Look, here's the thing. Penn State, because the money is deep. Mm-hmm. Really deep. You're talking about one of the richest programs, probably one of the 5 richest programs in the country. So in the NIL era, that matters. That's a big deal. And let's face it, the Big Ten.
Oh wait, I didn't hear you rank LSU.
So I went Penn State, Florida, LSU, Auburn.
LSU. And then where did you put Florida State? Because I'm assuming
Florida State, I'd put last on that list.
Behind Auburn. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I probably would. Just it's close. It's close. But I do think Auburn, the big advantage they have is they're still an SEC program. This is still a program that has not only played for national titles, but won national titles in recent years. We've seen with the right coach, this is a program that can get it going. So, yes, they're not one of those powerhouse programs in the SEC, but they're definitely a program with a lot of potential when they get the right guy. Don't get me wrong, Florida State with the right guy, they're definitely a power program and can be. But the SEC, similar to, like I said, with the money situation, the SEC and the Big Ten have just separated money-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not even a question.
Yeah, anymore. And with the ACC, they're so far behind the eight ball with their TV deal. You're talking about some serious cash in these two big conferences now. And I think it's kind of shifted the narrative. And the reason I said Penn State number one, just slightly above the others, was because not only is the money deep, it's a blue blood program that's always going to attract really good players. You've got a lot of good players in your backyard. I know some of these other programs.
Yes, that Western Pennsylvania, they're right there, and they go to Florida State. They don't defect. They stay there. But, we could probably have a whole pod on that. So let's get to these college games.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. And I'll just say this. It'll be interesting to see what direction Auburn does go, though. I don't think they're in the running for a guy like Lane Kiffin. I don't think they're in the running for, I don't even think they're in the running for some of the top big names, so to speak.
They can't. Not with LSU and Florida jobs available in Penn State, then they can't be.
Keep your eye on Tulane's John Summerall. He's the top candidate, is the guy that I'm hearing. I think it could be a potentially really good fit. So I'll keep an eye on that. But let's get to a top 10 team that got knocked out. And when I say knocked out, I think they're out of the college football playoff altogether here. Miami goes down to SMU, which, by the way, I know we didn't do the betting podcast. My apologies, but I had SMU plus 10.5. They get the outright win. Beat Miami, a ton of penalties, another bad Carson Beck interception right at the end of the game, cost them big in this game. Look, it's just got to be frustrating to be a Miami fan and watch this season, because just like last season, just like a number of games from last season, they end in such similar fashion. And look, this is what's really alarming. The win percentage for Miami is below 500 in November and December under Mario Cristobal. This is a team that this is becoming a trend now, where they start hot. They look like one of the best teams in the country. They're penciling them into that college football playoff. People are booking their tickets, and then they fall apart and they lose these games late and basically eliminate themselves. I mean, they've got to be frustrated. Offensively, I saw frustration from Carson Beck a couple times on the sideline. I think there's frustration from the fan base at this point. Out of Carson Beck's interceptions, I think the first one was not on him. The second one cost them the game. And look, he's late on that throw. He's expecting Malachi Toney to keep his route straight down the goal line. Malachi Toney fades into the end zone there. He's not expecting that. So I get that people are saying it's not necessarily on Carson Beck, but the problem is he's coming back to Malachi Toney late. That was his third or fourth read on that play. And when you go back to him late, you can't make that throw with him fading into the end zone. The offense, just too many times in this game, they're moving the ball. They stall around the 35-yard line. It just seems like every time they got something going, they end up going into reverse. They had 5 pre-snap penalties on offense. It just makes you want to pull your hair out if you're a Miami fan. Now, Miami, a team that, like I said, was looking like they were in the driver's seat just a couple weeks ago, now they only have a 7% chance to make the college football playoff, according to ESPN.
Right, and they dropped from 10 to 18, to your point. And I know we're going to get to another team that took a bad loss as well. But, it sounded like the narrative is when it gets cold, Miami falls off. That's what you said, November and December. And what are those? Those are the coldest months when you start having to move around and play some games, even at home. But when it starts to get a little bit windy, temperatures maybe not 85 and beautiful, and it's now maybe 67, and you kind of slow down. Again, We knew this about Carson Beck. We were warned by several Georgia fans about Carson Beck. So no one should be surprised that this is the Carson Beck that showed up.
Yeah, and look, I'll give him credit. He's actually played a really good season. I think it's been a really nice bounce back year for him. Yes. But unfortunately, the thing about Carson Beck, and we saw this at Georgia too, is when he's playing good, it looks really good. But when he plays bad, it kind of all unravels at once. It's like he throws picks in bunches. One bad throw turns into 5 bad throws. I mean, this game, it was just the one really big dagger at the end of the game that cost him. But look, they're going to be on the outside looking in, and that's got to be frustrating for a team that on paper is loaded with talent. Let's shift to Georgia Tech, North Carolina State, because this was the other big top 10 team that got knocked out. This is the best start to a season for Georgia Tech since 1966. What a start to the year for them, going undefeated up until this game. They go on the road versus NC State. And one thing that jumped out to me watching this game right away was it was noticeable early that North Carolina State came to play. And look, the puzzling thing on Saturday night was the lack of defense for Georgia Tech. This has been a team that's been really good defensively, but they had really a hard time getting stops. North Carolina State just seemed like the tougher, more physical team than Georgia Tech, which I also found surprising because we know this Georgia Tech team has really been a tough group. They really pushed around Georgia Tech in this game. And any time that Georgia Tech would try to get back into this game, C.J. Bailey, Teddy Hoffman, and the Wolfpack, it just seemed like they had an answer on offense every time.
Right. And speaking of C.J. Bailey, my helmet sticker goes to him, 340 yards, 75%, 3 total TDs, 2 passing and 1 rushing. This was a game, I know we, like you said, we didn't get to our betting picks, but I had picked NC State plus 5.5 to beat Georgia Tech. I looked at the games. They have a bye next week, then they face Boston College. It looked like they were on an easy street for that big game that's going to be down in Georgia when they face Georgia, the Bulldogs, again from that exciting game that we got the previous year where they could have a chance. And I looked at that and I said, they're going to slip up somewhere. They're too happy. They're looking ahead because they get the closer they got to it. I said, yeah, they're going to slip up somewhere because they'll see it. And unfortunately, they dropped from 8 to 18. I guess they could still win the ACC title game and still get in. And, but I mean, obviously, if they go to the end of the year and they beat Georgia, that'll probably push them back up into the top 10. But right now, they now have to maintain, go into the bye, lick their wounds, come back out and destroy the next few teams before they face Georgia at the end of the season.
With the turmoil we've seen in the ACC, I think this is going to be a one big conference, and it's going to come down to whoever wins that ACC championship game. I think that's the only ticket to the college football playoff for this conference now. Let's shift here. We had another big game in the SEC, Texas, Vanderbilt. Look, Arch Manning comes back from the concussion, was back on Saturday for this game, made it through protocol, looked really, really good in this game. Maybe the best I've seen him play this year, and it was in a big game, in a game that I think really saved their college football playoff hopes. Arch had 200 yards passing in the first half. They got the run game going. I loved the play calling I saw from Sark in this game. Really opened up things with the play action passes, the bootlegs. They got Arch on the edge. That defensive pass rush really slows down a little bit when you start moving Arch around, you start getting some misdirection stuff going. Really looked like a blowout at one point, Alex, 34-10 going into the fourth quarter. And this, don't count out Diego Pavia because, look, and I did. I'm pointing the finger at myself here. When they were up 34-10, this game went from the big TV to the iPad because I was like, you know what? I'm going to find another game to switch to here because it looks like Texas has got this under control. And so I've kind of, especially on Saturday, there's so many games going on. I'm kind of looking all over. All of a sudden, I'm kind of peeking over at that iPad. I'm going, wait a second, what is going on here? And I had to turn the volume back up on that one because, wow, what a comeback. I mean, if they get that onside kick, Alex, who knows? They might have pulled this thing off. And I give a lot of credit to Vandy for fighting and clawing back into this game, certainly, because I think a lot of teams would have just laid down. But this is the third straight week that Texas is playing with fire here. And look, this was a huge win. They have a 54% chance now to make the college football playoff. Vandy drops down to a 43% chance. Both these odds are according to ESPN. What's your big takeaways here? What did you make of this game? Because, Texas looked good, but then here they are in a nail biter late when it didn't look like they should be.
Yeah, they're going to be out of the playoffs because they're going to lose to Georgia after their bye. So we'll be saying that's what they're facing. They have a bye next week, and then they face Georgia. It's not looking good for Texas' chances. Not saying they can't win, but it's not looking good for Texas for Texas going forward. But I will say this about Vanderbilt. Who would have thought in the upheaval that we've had in the coaching carousel in the SEC that the two safest coaches would be Kirby Smart and Clark Lee from Vanderbilt? Because as we know, Sark has said or put out there the rumors that he's willing to go to the NFL. Clark Lee and Kirby Smart are the two safest coaches in the SEC right now.
The SEC has been wild.
Yeah.
Wild this year. Let's talk about one other SEC game here, because we talked about Texas kind of being in some of these games late when maybe they shouldn't be. Well, I could say the same thing about Georgia.
Yep.
Because somehow, as good as this team is, they keep finding themselves in these late game situations, having to pull out wins when it doesn't look like they're going to. And I got to give them a lot of credit. They keep finding ways to win, but they were on the ropes again versus Florida. Look, 46 consecutive wins against unranked teams for the Bulldogs going into this game. Georgia, not great in the first half. I mean, this was a close game. I got to give a lot of credit. Florida played really hard.
Yep.
For a team that doesn't have a whole lot to play for. Their coach is out looking for a job, and this team came to play. And I got to give them a lot of credit. Florida had some real opportunities in this game. They just struggled in some key moments, especially on those short yardage situations. You got to be able to convert those. Those were killers in this game. Florida was 0 for 2 on fourth down and just 2 for 11 on third down. Those were the differences in this game. DJ Lagway misses that wide open throw late. Look, if he hits him in stride, it's a walk-in touchdown. I mean,
was it a catch? Are you talking about the one that there's a big?
Yeah,
is that the one? That was a catch.
It was a catch.
That was a catch.
Yeah, and
I'm
I think
not saying we would have won, but that was a catch.
It was a catch. I completely agree. I was shocked that was overturned, but to my point, DJ Lagway hits him in stride, and he doesn't have to go to the ground to make that catch, right? Like, he's that guy is so open. He's got 10 yards. Just put it up there and let him run underneath it. And he's, like I said, he's walking into the end zone. Instead, he underthrows it. And I got to give the receiver credit. He made a heck of a play to come back and make the attempt at a catch there. I think he caught it. But to your point, I don't know if they win this game anyway, because it's just too many missed opportunities. Bulldogs, like I said a minute ago, they just keep finding ways to come back and win games late. It feels like every week they're in these games. So, look, I'm going to ask you, Alex, there's multiple ways to kind of look at this. Are the Bulldogs, are they just battle-tested and tough to beat, or are they due to get picked off?
They're due to get picked off. I don't think, similar to the NFL, I don't think there's a dominant team that's run away with the whole thing that we could just say, hey, like how we looked at Philly last year, or when Georgia was on their 2-year run, that we could say, yeah, that's the team. I don't think there's any team, because I also don't believe in Ohio State either, who's the number one team in America. Like, I feel like we don't even talk about them, and they're the number one team in America. So I think everybody can be picked off. I mean, I said what I said about Texas going in 2 weeks from now having to face Georgia. Heck, Texas could go in there coming off the bye, dial something up. Arch can, the light bulb, not to say that he's a bad quarterback, but the light bulb can go on and he can have one of those elite games that everybody's been waiting for him to have in a big moment. And we can get the moment in 2 weeks from now, and Georgia can get picked off.
Before we get out of here, I got to give out my college football helmet sticker. And look, I'm going to show some love to the group of 5. UTSA quarterback Owen McCown. He is the son of Josh McCown. 31 for 33, 370 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and a big upset win over a very good Tulane program. Obviously, his dad, Josh McCown, we saw play in the NFL for a long time. I think he's actually a quarterback coach in the league now.
Yeah, he is. I forgot where he's at. He is on the sidelines. Quick before we get out of here, I know we had one of Our other bets hit. Boston College took 31.5 over Notre Dame. They only won 25-10, but the 31.5 covered. So that's another win for us. I gotta tell you guys, this is the first year I actually laid physical bets online, and it's been fun, and I've been hitting. So lunches have been free. Lunches and gas have been taken care of every week for a little while now. And last but not least, of football completely, congratulations to the to the LA Dodgers for winning the World Series. Good game too. Seventh game, 18 innings or whatever it was. Good World Series.
Might be the best one ever. People are saying it might be the best one ever. I think I saw a stat that it was the most innings ever played in a World Series. So that was awesome. Yeah, that was cool.
Just by law of being a Yankee fan, I cannot say those words. But continue.
Yeah, you're a New York guy through and through. All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for today's episode. Look, if you enjoy the show, do us a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any future episodes. But once again, I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.